person with spiky preferences is someone who really likes some things and really dislikes others, whereas a person with smooth preferences is someone who's kind of okay with whatever. There are a lot of advantages to cultivating spiky preferences, but it can be hard because we're kind of smooth by default. We are social creatures. We get our information, our habits, our customs from the people around us, from media broadcasts, and so on. And all of that sort of has a tendency to default towards mainstream, to default towards average or median. And so figuring out your spiky preferences takes a bunch of work. You have to sort of break out of a box that is kind of hard to see sometimes. It's like being a fish and learning what water is. In this video, I'll be sharing with you 3 techniques that I use to help free my internal spikiness, and hopefully it can help you be a spikier person too. The first technique is to figure out what you want before looking at the options. It is well understood among marketers that preferences can be influenced just by showing you different options. This is done often with magazine subscriptions that have both digital and print options. They'll offer you a just digital, offer you a just print, and then offer you a digital and print that costs only slightly more than the just print, and people tend to pick that one. It is well understood by marketers that the options you show a customer affect what they want. It's not that a person has a well-defined value function, it's that a person has a bunch of heuristics that they use to figure out what they want to buy, and by displaying options in just the right way, you can influence how a person picks things. If you want to be spiky, then it's good for you to avoid this influence. And the best way to do that is to figure out what you want before you see the options that have been crafted to manipulate your behavior. So when I'm figuring out what I want, like in a bicycle, in a computer, or in a relationship, I write down what I want in a notebook. And then, after doing that, I go out into the real world and see what the possibilities are. And sometimes I'm surprised. Sometimes people have created opportunities that I didn't know about, but if I look to see what the options are in the world, it's really hard to forget those. It's really hard to put them out of my mind and get back to that fresh state of just, here is what I want, independent of what people are trying to nudge me towards. Technique number 1, which I just told you, works really well for things that you can figure out your preferences in advance. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes there are interesting things in the world that you're never going to see on the front page of Reddit or in the news. Mechanics have certain preferences about cars that I don't know because I don't know very much about cars. Programmers have preferences in software that non-programmers generally don't have, and so on and so on. My brother, who cooks really well, has preferences in food that I don't share because he's put such a tremendous amount of time into cooking. And this doesn't mean he doesn't appreciate good restaurants. In fact, after he put all of that time into cooking, he can recommend to me really, really good restaurants because he has a knowledge base of food that has been acquired by cooking a ton. Could you do this just by going to restaurants? I don't think so, because when you're a cook, you have a different perspective on food. Different things matter to you than when you're just going into a restaurant. You understand how stuff is constructed. And when you understand how stuff is constructed and why, that can help give you a better understanding. And understanding things better, well, that leads to preference change. A few years ago, I started learning how to draw. And I'm not very good at it. But every single time I even copy something that someone I admire has made, I learn to understand it in more detail. And when I learn to understand it in more detail, I learn to better understand what makes things good and bad, in my opinion, in this domain at least. So those are 2 options. The first one is figure out what you want before you see the options. The second one is go all hardcore in doing the thing yourself, so you can learn what all the different ways to configure it are and why. And number 3, I call mimetic detox. In the extreme, mimetic detox is going basically Amish and cutting off all media for a week or a month. But you don't necessarily have to do that. Just identify whatever media feeds, whether they're forums or Twitter or YouTube or TikTok, that are most affecting how you think, and just disconnect from them for a few weeks. Whenever I do this, I notice my preferences changing, and I usually like the direction they're changing, because when you cut out a whole bunch of advertisement, and I'm not talking just about ads, I'm talking about all the content that companies help facilitate the creation of, once you cut out all of that, all that's left is you. And since media production tends to drag someone towards commercial interests, removing that helps bring you towards your own interests, which is what we're going for with being spikier people.